Welcome. My name is Hector, and alongside me is my co-host Janae, and you're listening to Our Time Is Now. And this started just so we can have a platform or a podcast that we can listen to and learn a little bit more about the things that we're not taught on a daily basis, things that our school isn't teaching us, things that society is refusing to inform us about, and honestly be able to have a platform where we can actually have real discussions about real topics that most people are either refusing to engage in, or we've been taught on a daily basis that we shouldn't discuss and shouldn't have a voice about. So in the podcast, especially with this podcast, our main focus is to be able to enlighten those that don't know exactly the things that are going on, things that they need to know. And a lot of topics are going to be all over the place. We're going to be talking about politics. We're going to be talking about religion. We're talking about money. All those things that at our family tables, we're always told that we shouldn't discuss. And
some of our family tables.
Well, that's very true, very true.
Because some of our family tables we have been discussing, I think that part of it is that other tables are told like this isn't a conversation that we're gonna have. And we need to have those conversations. We need to talk about our history because it will continue to repeat itself when it doesn't. And it really has. So we're just hoping that we can have these quote unquote table talks with you, the people, and you guys will, extend these conversations to your families and others around
you. Absolutely. I 100% agree, because we've gotten to a place where ignorance and complacency are rewarded. Conformity is the norm, and we've bought into this idea where simply nothing, that there's simply nothing we can do, which is 1,000% incorrect. We must first get to and continue to be informed, and then secondly, we must take action, because a lot of the quote is always put as knowledge is power, but I don't believe knowledge is power. I believe knowledge is the pre-workout, to say. Massive action is power. That's the actual workout. That's what helps you actually become stronger, and where you see actual improvement in your overall health and in life. It's not enough for you to have a great idea. You have to be able to implement it and actually see it to fruition. And I think a lot of people, we've always gotten to a place where even to as you were mentioning, Janae, like we have those conversations, but a lot of the things that we tend to not really discuss and actually do is actually putting it into action on a daily basis and teaching it to the next generation, so they can more or less continue the fight and continue that knowledge from one generation to the next. So Jane, do you want to start with your history and how you came about, especially where you are right now, or would you like me to begin?
Sure, I could go. So I am originally from the Dirty Den, Meriden in Connecticut. That place is always gonna have my heart and soul. But I am currently in Los Angeles. And
loving the weather.
loving the weather. It gets cold at night, guys. I need to put that out there. This is a falsehood. They're like, oh, it doesn't get cold. No, it do. It get really cold. Like I have a sweater on right now. I'm like, yeah. But how I started, I really feel like I really started at a young age. I think I was like around 11 or 12 when my mom had me go with her to DC to protest with a group of mainly Black women, but with women and Black families, to protest against we were protesting basically to have the government stop putting children in adult prison, and really changing the age requirement, because at the time, and it still happens now, if you are 16 and you do a crime, depending on the crime, they could be like, that's enough for you to be tried as an adult, or even as young as 13 or 14. And at that time, they were like, it was like young cases that they were getting trialed as an adult. And when you're tried as an adult, you have a lot longer sentence. It's really gruesome. And there's no account to like any prison isn't a reform. Like, it's not a place where you go to like reform till you can be a better citizen. It's literally a place of torture. And so you're starting really young, torturing children without even trying to figure out what had occurred to their lives. So,
Great point.
yeah. So, sorry, little cough. At 12, I was doing that in DC, and really started to advocate a lot more through my brother, who's on the autism spectrum. So, learning about it and really having to teach grown adults, teachers, it was surprising at my age how much people just didn't know about anything, and who were in positions, like they were older, they were teachers, they were supposedly wiser, and they really didn't know, just like anything about a lot of stuff. I grew up with parents that were very pro-Black, and a mom that is, now I can look at her and say, yeah, like totally a feminist. And so we were very taught at a young age on certain things about our history that was really important. And being in Meriden, but I grew up on the dominant white side. We were the only family that moved there, like the first family to move on the dominant white side for miles. There was like no one. It was just us. And that kind of changed a lot of things, and seeing a lot of things differently, being on the dominant white side and having friends that were, like I say, there's a, what is it, like a train track? There's literally a train track that like separates us. And seeing things that were just totally unjust and getting angry because I was in also a dominant white side, and seeing, well, their lives is really different. They can do a whole lot of things, and no one seems to be upset or are willing to put them behind bars or punish them in an inhumane way. With my brother being on the spectrum, it was really important that we learn how to advocate for him, because the likelihood of him being put in a system of jail or murdered was actually quite high because he has a disability. So that's a little spill on me.
Awesome. And I definitely appreciate you bringing a lot of those points into light. And your story is definitely unique, because you see so many of these stories too as well, where people just got to a point where they just kind of label kids whatever they want, so they can kind of forget about them, not really wanting to learn exactly what it is to be able to assist them in life. And you can see it in our even policing. They don't really understand people with that are on the spectrum or just have mental issues in general, and how to be able to actually deal with them in a safe, humane way. And I understand that their lives are in danger, but our lives are in danger as well, especially now in the way that police are handling their citizens. And obviously you see the differences in how they handle a certain people versus another. But it is important, and I do definitely appreciate you bringing that up, because it is one of those things where everyone kind of just puts a blanket label over a group of people, and they just think that, this is just what it is. And unfortunately, it's individual by individual, and we do have to treat it that way. For me, I was actually not blessed with that. I was born in the DR, so we're talking about heat. You definitely get a lot of that. So born in immigrant family. I came here when I was actually 4 to New York. And anyone that knows Dominicans, we populate a lot of Upper Manhattan, Washington Heights. Go get to the Heights. So it was fun. I played a lot of sports, had a lot of Interactions really when I was growing up were with my people, essentially, like Dominicans. Even when I was in New York, that's our concentration was all Hispanic. So it wasn't really something that I kind of paid attention to, because at that point in time, it was always I was surrounded by my people, I guess you can say. And so it wasn't really until I actually moved to the Dirty Den, Meriden, that I actually kind of to see a little bit more of that, because as you pointed out, especially when I moved and when we moved to Meriden, we were one of the few minorities in that town, period. And to your point, there are actual little train tracks that separate us, even though it's changes the zip code. You can also see essentially the segregation a little bit in terms of, one side of the tracks is living a lot
I
better than
don't
the other
think it
side
is
of the
even
tracks.
like kind of like I have had a lot of family members who would drive through and be like, "Where are we now?" I mean, like, it'd be so
Yeah,
obvious. It's kind
that
of
is
funny because
true.
I'm all of a sudden thinking, "Oh, I remember when you moved to Meriden. I remember you went to this in
Yes.
middle school, and like, yeah,
Yeah.
reminiscent."
Yeah, no, it's funny. So for me, the reason why I say like, oh, so, it's not so apparent, because like for me, it's really in Meriden, even though the train tracks separate us, it's not so much like one side and another. It's really like the center of Meriden is really what most people consider the
Mm-hmm.
trouble area, and then the outskirts of Meriden is what people consider the lavish side, or they even have a South Meriden, which
Mm-hmm.
completely is set it thinks that they're their own town. So it just kind of plays into that role. But I was not in a my parents were always just trying to, the immigrants were just trying to come here and build better and do better for their kids and provide better opportunities so we'd be able to succeed. And in that, you kind of that's really what all your focus is, at least for me, for the longest, was just about like monetarily, just focusing on earning a lot of income, being able to, take care of my family, because that's really what you're
American
taught.
Dream.
And the more and more, exactly, the American dream. And when you start to grow up, and especially when you start to get informed, it's you see that that's just kind of the kind of dangling the carrot in front of you to kind of keep you from actually focusing on the things that actually matter in this world, and see all the injustices that are happening, are all around us. So it actually wasn't, even though I experienced racism a lot, and I always kind of like brushed it off, and it wasn't because at that point in time, at least I didn't believe, because I was just being naive and ignorant, is that it wasn't really impacting me. So it wasn't until, again, I started to get more informed and really learn more about my history, that I was able to realize that black isn't based on your nationality. It's your skin color. It's who you are, your designation in this world. And black is beautiful, and black is everything.
Amen.
And for the longest we've just been taught that it's our history was wiped out completely, and what we have to actually go and search it. It's not anywhere that it's not anywhere where the majority of Americans can actually reach, and or are actually pushed to actually learn. It's just something that's kind of set to the side, and we always kind of put it on the low, or the bottom of the totem pole, because we just continue to feed this ignorance. And even you can see it. We just celebrated Thanksgiving, and most people don't even actually know the history of that quote unquote holiday. So which is just it's just telling, I'm sorry, that how we continuously celebrate traditions that we don't really know anything about. So we continuously celebrate stuff and not understand where it come from and why it is. And I think it's important, because to your point, when beginning of this podcast, and you said, if you don't know, history is doomed to repeat itself, and
Yeah.
that's 100% true. And so I got to a point where I got a little bit of a taste of my history, of my knowledge, through the books I was reading, to the people I was talking to, Black scholars, Black entrepreneurs. And the more I read, the more I realized I didn't know. And so it just kind of gets you into the rabbit hole, and you just keep going and going. And honestly, just enlightened me, and it gave me a sense of purpose and a sense of power, and a sense of realization that I am Black. Because even in the Hispanic community, when someone says like, "Oh, you're Black," and it's like, "Oh, no, I'm Dominican, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm this, I'm that," and we always fail to acknowledge that no, you are a Black Puerto Rican, you are a Black Dominican, you are Black, you come from a rich ancestry, and for us to always kind of try to always like separate ourselves from that is a travesty in itself. But when we do that, we're actually stripping away our own power and gifting it to other people. And we always try to find a way to fit in, and we shouldn't. We actually are more powerful when we actually embrace the differences between one another. But just because we have those differences doesn't mean that you should not be able to live a life of abundance, of happiness, and be able to pursue the things that you want in this life. But to your point, Janae, and I keep saying to your point, I think it's one of those words I might be using a lot. But one of the things that actually got us on this journey was the book White Fragility. And that book honestly has changed a lot for me. And for those of you who haven't picked it up, haven't listened to it, White Fragility is a book essentially written by a white person, a white woman. I stand corrected, and a white woman that is speaking to white people about their kind of thank you. About just color and a lot of the things that they either don't realize that they're doing, or things that they are doing that they do not realize are offensive, and that are actually contributing to what is currently continuously transpiring in this world. Because a lot of people think that racism was dead, or was basically canceled because Barack Obama was elected president. And
also,
obviously now we can see
sorry
that
to
was just,
not to cut you off, but I also think people
no,
have an illusion that racism is just this violent nature, that it's like physical violence. So like, yes,
correct.
When we talk about like the lynching, you're like, oh my God, it's so violent. Racism, it's violent. But we don't talk about what led to that violence. And that is really, I think, what White Fragility does a good job, is like really showing you how it could lead to such violence on a thought process of superiority with white supremacy.
Absolutely. And so if you haven't, so that us reading that book, and actually Janae was the one that put me on, so I appreciate that. And it's honestly, guys, also too, and one of the reasons why we started this podcast is because it's just, her sending me that book definitely opened up my eyes, and actually also made me feel like, man, like I'm not alone. Like this shit is serious. Like, and I'm not just crazy. I'm not thinking about, like, there's other people that also feel this way, and for a white woman to know and acknowledge that is huge. But you sometimes hear it better coming from your own folk. You can say that, but it's a book that definitely will help a lot. And honestly, one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because it just let us know that a lot of these topics aren't discussed, and the more that we refuse to have these conversations and refuse to acknowledge certain things, the more difficult it is going to be for us to be able to unite as a people. And on a side note, for you guys that are listening in, yes, we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics, but we're going to keep it like 100% authentic, like we said in the beginning. So you're going to hear a couple curses, that's just how we talk. We just get emotional, we get passionate, and that's what it is. So we apologize,
I'm
but
not
at the same
apologizing.
time, we're not apologizing for being real. for being real. So it is what it is. So if you have a problem with it, then just know and understand that we're not going to change who we are for anybody. This is who we are, and and that's the reason why we started this, because we're not going to tell you what you want to hear. We're going to tell you what we believe you need to hear, and a lot of discussions that we need to have. So some of the things that you can expect from this podcast, and essentially how we're going to be operating, is every week we're going to be discussing a different topic, either a discussion that we would like to have with you, or a topic that isn't really discussed. We're also one other week we could be talking about financial literacy and teaching you certain tools that you'll need in order to be successful, or things that, again, that you aren't being taught. We will also put it up to you guys, and in different weeks we'll give you guys our social media platform, so you guys can get a hold of us. And if you guys have a topic that you would like us to discuss, or something that you just want to learn more about, you can definitely message us at different social media platforms. And again, we'll give you guys all those at the end. But this is definitely going to be something that's going to be, every week we're going to let you know what the topic is at the beginning of the podcast. And essentially, with every week, we're also going to be giving you a song, Black empowerment song, that I believe is definitely going to either help uplift you, get you in that mood, or just honestly just that has a really powerful message. So every week you can expect that, along with every month. We're going to have a book of the month that we're going to be discussing. Again, this month's book is White Fragility, so you can pick it up on Amazon. You can
Ooh,
pick it up on
Black-owned bookstores. I'm sorry.
yeah.
There
Nah,
is
go ahead.
actually, we would prefer you to purchase books or anything that we suggest from Black-owned businesses. Um, this is super
Yes.
important during this pandemic, but and it's really important during this pandemic. I know a lot of people are like, oh, small businesses are going under. I think at one point they said maybe like 40%. That number doubles for Black and brown communities, like doubles. So it is really essential to be mindful to where you are going
Yeah.
to purchase anything but books too. And there are actually quite a bit of Black owned bookstores that and maybe we will post to help that you can purchase these books from. So strongly, sorry, Timmy, to put that plug in, but like strongly,
No,
can
no,
you,
you're right.
yeah, that's the ask. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, because with like our power, especially in the Black community, is with our dollar, and it is the money where we invest our money. Yeah, purchasing different investments and stuff like that, but our investments is within our community, and we got to make sure that we keep our dollar in that community as well. So you're 100% right, though. Thank you for that. And just an easy way for you guys to do this, because we even did this. If you go on our Instagram, you will see we have posted it one specifically for Connecticut, but guys, wherever you are, you can literally Google Black owned businesses, and you will be able to see a bunch of businesses out there that are Black owned that you can support, that you can even shop online and support. There's a ton of ways to be able to do so. So we will definitely, and honestly, what we may end up doing, Janae, and I know this is kind of out of the out of the works, we didn't discuss this prior, but maybe we, like, every single week we'll actually give you guys a different Black business for you guys to be able to check out, give you a little bit of information on them, and then give you the link so you guys would be able to
I think
check
that
them
would be
out. What do you think
awesome,
about that,
right?
Janae?
I love that idea. And I think intentional for everybody, whoever, I don't care what race you are, but intentionally buying. Because I think sometimes marketing assumes that if it says Black, that only Black people can purchase this. So I had challenged people this, and I'll
Right.
do this again now, is find a product Black made and commit to it for a whole year. And there is quite a bit so that you can commit to. If
Yeah.
you know about a product, try to go through their direct website and maybe not purchase it at Walmart. I know it's convenient for Walmart, but we'll talk about that on another segment on why we are not going to go to
Yeah,
these establishments. But we'll talk about that later. But like, be mindful of like, if
absolutely.
you can go on their site and directly get that product, then do so.
Absolutely. And so, so yeah, guys. So again, this is kind of our platform, how we're going to be operating every single week. So if you guys have any topics that you like to discuss, even Black-owned businesses that you want to shout out, you want us to shout out, and we can certainly do that. Definitely a Black empowerment song that you think that is great. We definitely would love to hear from you. So for right now, guys, I think that's all we have for you for this first
Yay.
episode.
I
Janae, is there anything else you want to add
I
before
do.
we
I definitely want
bounce?
everyone to continue to follow us. This is going to be great. It's going to be great. So come back and listen to more and know that we are going to be 100% real. And yeah, and check out the books. Strongly suggested
Yes.
to just, we are not going to steer anyone to their own demise. I don't believe in that. So if
Yeah.
with myself, with my spiritual self, knowing that like if I'm saying something, it's because I strongly think it's going to help you and for you to see the world a little bit differently. So yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, so guys, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And before we go, we want to give you this week's song for you guys to check out. So this week's song is actually Entrepreneur by Pharrell and Jay-Z. So definitely go on your different streaming platforms and check that out. It's definitely a great uplifting song, and actually better yet, check out the video. The video is absolutely phenomenal. And it definitely actually, when we're talking about Black-owned businesses, it gives you a different, great individuals that are doing great things that you may or may not even know about. So definitely go check out that video. It's, again, Entrepreneur by Pharrell and Jay-Z. So guys, check us out on Instagram at Our Time Is Now Podcast and on all streaming platforms at Our Time Is Now Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening in. And as you already know, our time is now. Thank you. I'm Black Ambition. I'm always whispering.